With the release of the Lightyear movie coming out, I've decided to tier list all the Pixar movies. And the list is going to be from S, the very best, to D. So S is going to be fantastic, A is going to be great, B is going to be very good, C is going to be good, and D is going to be mediocre. I didn't feel that having a bad tier would be needed for this tier list video, as I don't think any of the Pixar movies are actually bad altogether. So let's get into it. Starting off in release order is Toy Story. Toy Story, the first Pixar movie, and it's such a great idea thinking of if your toys came to life. And the characters of Woody and Buzz in particular in this movie work really well as a counter to each other. And we see Woody being the main toy, always being the toy that gets played with the most, to new Buzz coming in and having to deal with his insecurities with Buzz being the new shiny toy around. And we get to see Buzz work through his insecurities throughout the movie and learn to accept Buzz as Andy's new toy coming in to join the group. And also Buzz throughout the movie coming to the realization that he's just a toy as well. And for me, this has to be in the S tier. This is one of the best Toy Story movies and also one of the best Pixar movies that they've done. So for me, it's definitely going in the S tier. Moving on to A Bug's Life. And this is one that I haven't really watched much of when I was a kid. This isn't one that I put on that much. And throughout the first 12 or 13 Pixar movies, this is one of the weaker ones in general, and the animation doesn't hold up as well compared to some of the other ones from this era. However, I do think the grasshoppers are a good villain in this movie. Also, they make some sort of urgency by having some time scale to get all the food by. And also, I like the adventure that Flick goes on finding the heroes, bringing them back, and also the miscommunication between them all, and the final plan together to get them all to defeat the grasshoppers. So overall, I'll say this is a good movie, so I'll put it in the good category. And moving on into Toy Story 2, and I think this is a great sequel for the first original movie, and having the additions of Jessie and Bullseye are really good, and they split up our two main characters in this one. However, they're still able to keep up the charm that's in the original one and keep it in this movie, whilst also having some great pop culture references and a really good credit scene. Even though I think this movie is great, I don't think it's as good as the first one, so I'm going to put this one in the A tier. Next we have Monsters Inc. And this is a real interesting concept for a movie. And I say this because we have what every child's scared of having monsters in their closet coming out to scare them and turning that into fuel to power the whole city. And I thought that was a real interesting way of coming at it and looking at this movie. And the duo of James Sullivan and Mike Wazowski is probably one of the best duos in Pixar, and those two together really works well. Added in Boo as well into the mix, having them secretly hide her around trying to get her back home. So for this movie, I'm going to put it in the S tier. Moving on into Finding Nemo, and this is probably one of the Pixar movies that I've watched the most. And after you see the opening of the movie, you can understand Marlin's reason for wanting to protect Nemo so much throughout the movie and try and keep him with him the whole time. However, you can see him becoming too over-controlling and too overprotective throughout it, leading to pushing Nemo away throughout it. And whilst trying to find Nemo back, he learns all these lessons about letting go a bit, trusting your kid a bit, and just becoming one of the most reserved fish out there to having all these adventures, fighting sharks, going all the way to the other side of the ocean to get Nemo. Also, the addition of Dory is really good into this, as her character and her characteristics of her being bubbly, her being really funny throughout the movie, matches or suits Marlin, as he's more the reserved, more of the grumpy one, and it equals each other out. And re-watching it, I forgot how funny Dory was throughout this movie. So for that, I'm going to put Finding Nemo on the S tier. And moving on into The Incredibles, and this is a great superhero movie and probably one of the best in its genre, as we have a man that's in his midlife crisis, reflecting upon and dreaming upon the days that he used to have as being a superhero and being able to save people, but now he's just in his mediocre life in the sense that he's just repetitive, doing something that he doesn't enjoy and wants to get back out there. Whilst we have family drama with the kids as well, with Violet and Dash having their own separate problems to overcome and to deal with themselves. And throughout the movie, as this is a superhero movie, the action scenes do live up to the superhero genre, and I really do enjoy them. We get to see all of the characters use their unique power sets in different ways, in different environments, and all come together to defeat Syndrome. And Syndrome is a very good and very compelling superhero villain, and probably one of the best villains that we do have in the Pixar universe. So I'm going to put The Incredibles in the S tier. I'm going on to Cars, and as I said, Nemo is one of the movies that I watched the most growing up. Cars is the Pixar movie I watched the most when I was growing up, and I loved the Cars in general. I had the Cars games on my DS as well, and I just loved this movie. As we have this big time racer getting stuck in this small town, trying to find his way back out to go to his big race in the end. As we have Lightning McQueen, this arrogant, selfish driver that doesn't work well in the team, that always thinks about himself, coming to this small town and having to actually get to know the people, get to actually learn about teamwork, having to learn about trusting other people and learning humility in it as well. Learning different lessons from all of the cars there and incorporating it into his race at the end as well. And Mater makes for a good companion throughout the movie for Lightning McQueen. And all the race scenes as well are really well done. And having that at the end when Lightning McQueen gives up the race to help out is a really good way of showing how he's changed as a character throughout the movie. So this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to put Cars in the S tier. And next off we have Ratatouille. And this is another really interesting concept of a rat being a really great cook and being able to control someone with the hair to cook the food. Movies like this is like where you think of the like genius ideas of what Pixar come up with, to come up with a movie like this and to still have it be so relatable in the sense that we have Remy having problems with his family, having family problems, especially with his dad. Also, the ideas of people can't change and ideas can't change. You can't change the world, with his dad thinking a certain way of how humans perceive rats, and Remy challenging them in a sense, having the idea that it doesn't always have to be like that. And Pixar still able to have a great concept of such a random, such an interesting idea and still make it so relatable. And I'm going to put Ratatouille in the S tier. And next off we have WALL-E. And this is a real interesting one in the sense that for the first 35-40 minutes, this is basically a silent movie as we don't really get any talking at all, and we connect to WALL-E through his emotions and him emoting in a sense. And we can see throughout the movie as goes on as WALL-E's looking for companionship throughout the movie and finding that in Eve. And in the second part of the movie, it goes up into space and we have all these action scenes. And the first half of where it's a silent movie, and the second part where we have all these action scenes, they managed to able to fit it together so it works perfectly as one coherent movie. And for that, I'm going to put WALL-E in the A tier. And next, moving on into Up. And the first 10 minutes of Up are brilliant. It's the best part of the movie in the way it shows everything and has the emotion throughout it, and you can really feel for the character. However, the rest of the movie doesn't live up to that. And even though I said the rest of the movie doesn't live up to the heights of the first 10 minutes or so, it's still really great. The characters work well together. They still also have the emotions that the first 10 minutes have and carry it throughout the movie. And overall, I'll say this is a very good movie. So I'm going to put this in a very good category. And next off is Toy Story 3. And in total, the first 3 Toy Stories are one of the best trilogies out there, one of the best animated trilogies, one of the best trilogies out there, as this movie is just another brilliant Pixar film. And as there's such a big time gap between the second Toy Story and the third one, we've come to the point where Andy's going off to college now and university, and he doesn't really play with his toys. And this makes for a great movie in the sense that as Woody's been also always so attached to Andy, even though he hasn't really played with them for the last couple of years, he still wants to be there with him. If he wants to take him to college, he'll be there. If he wants to put them in the attic, he'll be there with him. And that makes for a great dilemma with Woody throughout the movie of what to do, even though he's not really needed by or wanted by Andy as much anymore. And also, having Buzz and the other group in daycare is really great as well. And I think Lotso makes for another really great villain that we have in the Pixar universe, as he is compelling and he does have a backstory that you can understand why he's changed to the way he is today. All coming to the conclusion where Andy does give the toys to Bunny in the end. So I'll give this movie and put this movie in the S tier. And next off we have Cars 2, and this movie gets a lot of hate and is considered one of Pixar's worst movies, and I like it a bit more than most people do. And I feel like if we had the same movie but it wasn't in the Cars franchise, it would work a lot better. As we go from the original Cars, where it is a big city car coming to a small town and learning about the small town and the people in it, to this movie where we have the sidekick Mater from the first movie become the main character, Lightning McQueen becomes the psychic really. He doesn't really, and we're going all around Europe, all around the world. From the first one where we're just in a small location, the Radiator Springs, to this movie where we're traveling from Italy to London, and we're going all over the place. So it's just a massive change, and I feel like this movie would have worked better if they had the same concept with Lightning McQueen having a race around to see who is the fastest car, because that's an interesting second movie to have, and I think that would have worked well if that was the main plot that they had. However, it isn't, so I'm going to put this movie in the good category, because I still quite like it. Moving on into Brave, and I'm going to put this in the mediocre category. This is the Pixar movie that feels the least like a Pixar movie, and I don't think it's bad. I think it's literally just mediocre. It doesn't do anything special. The relationship between the mum and the daughter, having their problems together, and then they switch into the bear as well. It's all fine for me. Nothing really stands out about this, so that's why I'm just going to leave it in mediocre. Next off is Monsters University, and the prequel that we didn't need, however, the prequel that I really, really enjoyed. And I love the idea of exploring how these two characters met, exploring their struggles through university and how they got to where they were. As we have Mike and his whole journey to this point really being the underdog, not being scary enough but having all the knowledge, and then the total opposite of Jane, where he has that family name, everyone respects him because he's scary, and he doesn't really have any of the book smarts, so they have to come together to work together. And I really enjoyed the scare games that they had as well, and the group that they were put in as well. I thought that was a nice mixture into it, and we get to see how they bond together, how they're able to work together, and you can see from this where their friendship ends up to the original Monsters Inc. And for this, I'm going to put this movie in the good category. The next movie is Inside Out. And this is a movie I haven't been as high as everyone else, as it's been regarded as one of the best Pixar movies. However, I just have it a little bit below that, even though I still think it's a good movie. And it was another great, interesting idea that Pixar put out there, because the last couple of movies before that had been sequels and other add-on movies to movies that they've already done. And the idea of going through the emotions of a person, having two opposites for happiness and sadness, and that you can't just have one emotion, all the emotions have to mix, and showing that in Riley, our character, and exploring the ideas of how a personality, having imaginary friends as well. And for this, I'm going to put this in the very good category. Next off, we have The Good Dinosaur, and I'm going to also put this in the mediocre tier as well, as I didn't feel like it worked as well for me. As we have throughout the movie Arlo becoming more confident and becoming more brave in himself, but as like I said in Brave, this one doesn't really feel like a Pixar movie as such, and it doesn't really have any standout moments. However, it is fun, but it doesn't do anything stand out like the other Pixar movies above it, so that's why I have it in mediocre. Next, we have Finding Dory, and we have a situation where Dory's trying to find her parents and Marlin and Nemo are trying to find Dory, and I feel like throughout the first one, what made the first one good for me was the parents as well. As we had Marlin and Dory, those two pairs worked really well together. I don't think Nemo and Marlin work as well together. They don't, and I feel like they were playing it loose with what Dory could remember, as she was conveniently able to remember certain stuff about her family and what the clues that she needed to do, and then at some point she wasn't able to remember certain stuff. And they also played out at the start that she went straight from going to find her parents to helping Marlin find Nemo, and I felt like they could have played that a bit better, as even though Dory has the memory loss issue, she's been trying to find her parents for so long. I feel like she would have mentioned it in the first Nemo movie. However, this is still a good movie and it's still quite entertaining, so I'm going to put this in the good category. And next off, we have Cars 3, and I feel like this is a good conclusion to have. Lightning McQueen, the up-and-coming rookie, taking the racing scene by storm, now coming into this movie where he is the veteran, and there's all these new technologies, all these new races coming in, dominating the track, and he has to try and fit in. However, he wants to do it his way. He wants to do the old-fashioned way instead of adapting to the new technology. And introducing the Cruise character in and having Lightning McQueen as the mentor to her is a good way to have him end of the movie and end of the trilogy. So I'm going to put this in the good category. And next off is Coco. And this is a movie that I didn't see in the cinema, and I saw a couple of years later after it released, and I didn't expect it to be that good. But after seeing it, I was pleasantly surprised how good it was and how they were able to tell the story about family, about death, about music as well, and finding your passion all in one and able to make it work so well, and having Miguel appreciate and learn more about his family as well. And I'm going to put Coco in the S category. Next off we have Incredibles 2, and this is another great addition to the Pixar universe and another good sequel to The Incredibles, as it has all the great action scenes from the first one. However, this one takes more of a focus on Elastigirl and makes her more the main character throughout this movie. And also we have a good villain in Screensaver as well, and also her backstory as well is really compelling, and you can understand her reasons for doing what she's doing. And for this, I'm going to put this in the B category. Next up is Toy Story 4, and I thought this is another great Pixar movie. It wasn't really needed as the trilogy was left off so well. However, they wanted to explore more Woody's journey and acceptance that he doesn't need to have an owner, lost toy, and they explored that really well with Woody's attachment to having an owner. And Forky is a fine addition as well, and also Gabby, I didn't really feel that it worked in the end, as he had her off as this villain, and then he gave her like this redeeming factor. She just wanted to be loved and just wanted to have an owner. However, it did work well, and for this, I'm going to put this in the very good category. Next up is Onwards, and this is about two boys trying to bring back their dad. And throughout the movie, it's very emotional. I wasn't expecting it to be as emotional as it was, as we get to see throughout the movie how their different relationships with their dad. As we have the Ian, the younger character, that didn't really get to know his dad, and has only got a certain amount of time to try and do all these stuff. He's desperate to try and spend at least some time with his dad. And we also have the older brother, as he has had time with his dad, and he feels some sort of regret and sort of guilt in a sense, and didn't really get to say that final goodbye to him. He was too afraid at the time to spend that time with him. So come to the end where it is really emotional, and the adventure that they do have together is really good as well, bringing on into the other characters that they meet along the way, and the mum character as well. So I'm going to put this in the very good category. And next up is Soul, and another movie dealing with the afterlife, and this is a really interesting concept as well, as we're dealing with the fact of regret, dealing with your purpose in life and what you want to do in your life. And when we had Jo taking 22 around the world, showing her what her personality and what her purpose could be, I thought that's when it worked the best. However, it did take a step down once we were in the afterlife. However, it was still really good as well, seeing how Pixar were able to portray the afterlife as well. And for that, I'm going to put this in the very good category. And next up is Luca, and this is a movie about two friends that are sea monsters, and whilst exploring this small town, getting to make friends, having these parent expectations as well. However, I didn't think there was any stand-up moments throughout this movie. So for that, I'm just going to put this in the C category. It was good. Next up is Turning Red, and what I thought worked best for Turning Red was the music, was the friendship, and also was the era that it's set in, as this is set in the early 2000s, and you can tell that from the gadgets, the phones that they have, the references that they made, and all of that combined together was really good, and I thought that was the best part of the show. However, the longer it went on into the final third, I didn't think that worked as well. The mum character turning into the red panda and destroying the whole concept didn't really feel like it fit with the rest of the movie. And also with the mum character, I felt like she was a bit over the top. As I get they were trying to do, she's overprotective, she's the protective parent, she sees her daughter in a certain way. However, I thought they went too much with that. They just went over the top a bit with that. However, I still think it's a good movie, so I'm going to put this in the C category. It was still good. Lastly, we have Lightyear, the movie that Andy saw to get Buzz Lightyear. And what worked for me with this is the sci-fi element, having Buzz Lightyear in the sci-fi element, having a straightforward movie about trying to get back home, and also, in a sense, having to work as a team. I got stranded in the first place was because not working in a team, and having to come together to work as a team to defeat the villain. I thought that worked really well. However, the villain itself, I didn't think worked that well. As having Buzz Lightyear as Zurg himself, I didn't think that worked for me. And I think the villain being literally anyone else would have worked a bit better for me, not being Buzz Lightyear himself. However, I still think it was enjoyable, and I'm going to put this in the good category. So that was my tier list ranking of the Pixar movies. Let me know down below in the comments what's your ranking of all the movies, and thank you for watching.